Hello and welcome to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode, the Reliant Scimitar. Welcome back. Anyway, if you're new to Quarterlight, what are we? Well, we'll look at car brochures, like this one that we're going to look at today, from around the world for the 1960s to the 1990s. Actually, we tend to go past those years as well. I always say the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s, but I often throw another one in the extremes of 50s and 2000s as well, to be honest with you. But anyway, I mustn't waffle. I'm prone to this, and I'm trying not to. But if you do like looking at car brochures, looking back at cars, really all about those memories, very much a bit of a motoring history channel in some ways, then please do consider subscribing. It is completely free, and indeed you can become a member if you really want to support the channel. Anyway, back to today's episode. We're going to be looking at this guy, the Reliant Scimitar. Now, we sometimes look at brochures that we looked at a few years ago because we've completely changed how we do brochure reviews now. This is one I picked out. It's not a particularly long brochure, so I don't think the video is going to be too long, but let's have another look at it. So here it is, the brochure we're looking at, the new Scimitar GTE, a bigger all-round motoring experience. This particular brochure is dated October 1975, and what a fantastic brown that is for the 70s. A very great colour for the 70s. I don't think it's the colour I would have picked for Scimitar, but nevertheless, that's what we're showcasing. I always think it's really weird, isn't it? Reliant. When I think about the Scimitar and Reliant, and you think about Reliant Robins, don't you? Reliant Regals. You don't necessarily think of this guy. It seems to be a polar opposite to that, but certainly a very interesting car in my view. So just zooming in on the front end there, so I do actually think these are actually really good looking cars actually, and of course in the traditional Reliant tradition, you don't have to worry quite as much about rust, when rust in the 70s was horrendous. There weren't really many so-called great cars at that time for resisting rust. You know, if you had an 8-year-old car, it was pretty much on its last legs due to all the rust issues, which is a shame because I think the 70s is one of my favourite decades for cars. But like I say, this design of this Scimitar is a really good one. So we're just going slightly out of focus there, so I'll move in a little bit further if I'm able to. There we go. But yeah, I overall love the look and the design of the Scimitar. I must admit, I remember seeing them everywhere, to be honest with you, but I've never sat in one, ridden in one, or, well, I guess the reason why I haven't sat in one or ridden one is because I didn't actually know anybody who owned one, but they were very popular and they really were a lot on the road. I think they were a pretty good seller overall. On this particular model, and correct me if you've seen this before, but I don't ever remember seeing that wheel actually. It's a very unusual wheel design, but I think, again, I quite like it. Anyway, enough of all this waffle, let's turn to the first page. So I open this particular brochure up and we turn to a black and white page, which usually I'm not actually a huge fan of. It would have helped with a bit of colour on here, I think. It says at the top there, sports car performance with estate car space. Certainly that sort of like hatch design certainly helps the practicality of these vehicles. Now this brochure is actually only 4 sides, so it's not a particularly big brochure, but when you do open it up like this, you're reminded of how long the brochure is. I do quite like that, I must admit. I'm going to go through the text though, and then we'll probably look at the images as we work our way through this, and then we'll turn to the back page. So it starts by saying the Scimitar GTE is the high performance estate, a unique blend of power and space that make it the grander tourer of cars. On the road, the GTE handles like the thoroughbred it is. The big V6 engine provides a tremendous reserve of power and excellent torque characteristics. The GTE sports superb performance with an effortless 70 miles per hour and a top speed of 120. Throughout these little notes here, we got funny little images showing here what looks like the rear seats, and I guess it's showing you how it moves as well, but there are weird shots, to be honest. It goes on to tell you that the power to weight ratio helps the Scimitar GTE achieve an economical 22 to 28 miles per gallon, remarkable for a 3-litre engine. A large 20-gallon tank gives you a 500-mile travelling radius. The new GTE has the famed Scimitar road-holding qualities thanks to its proven suspension design and its direct, steady steering. Or you have the option of power-assisted steering for even greater ease and manoeuvrability. You know, nice to have power steering at this time to show you. These were kind of like a little bit more upmarket in some ways. It goes on to tell us the GTE is hand-built with a rust-free fiberglass body on a strong steel chassis. A rollover bar in the roof adds to the construction's inherent strength. Inside, the GTE offers all the legroom 4 adults need and all the luxurious appointments too. Wide, deep bucket seats up front, a bench seat in the back to accommodate the occasional third passenger, and wide opening doors for easy access. There's thick pile carpet, excellent heating and ventilation systems, and the seats are faced with a plush fabric. Comfortable fabric, in fact. And from the driver's seat, the instrument panel is easy to read. The controls and switches are within immediate reach. And we'll have a look at the dash in a moment, but you know, as we're here, they are the front seats. It's a weird little design, isn't it, with this sort of like blurry sort of image. I'm not really sure what they're trying to show there. I mean, is it trying to demonstrate that they actually move? But it's a weird image, to be honest. But let's have a look at the dash. And yes, yet again, I wish these were better quality coloured images, but nevertheless, it gives you a bit of a demonstration or a look at how well equipped these cars were. So look at all those dials in there, and then we've got this little thin steering wheel with the GTE embossed in that centre hub section. Moving back to the text, it tells us, and the fascia incorporates special early warning instrumentation against failed brakes, worn brake pads, low fuel and engaged handbrake. Safety is a main concern in any car design. The GTE is no exception. It goes on to tell us its steel chassis and glass fibre body produce the safest combination. Sure, powerful direct brakes with the extra benefit of a dual line fail-safe system, and inertia reel seat belts in the front and lap belts in the back that keep everyone in place. Again, a little bit forward thinking there for the mid-70s. As well as people, the GTE has a big capacity for luggage, a capacity that is also very versatile. As a 4-seater, the GTE can take up to 21 cubic feet of luggage. As a 3-seater with one back seat down, the GTE can take up 30 cubic feet of luggage. Now, of course, hatchbacks weren't really as common or as sought after in the 70s as what they were in the 80s. I mean, everyone wanted a hatchback in the 80s in the UK, but nevertheless, I like that sort of forward thinking, you know, it's a bit of an estate car, fold the seats back. The seats are all also split folding, which again, I think a lot of forward thinking, great ideas actually when the team must have come together to think of all these features. I think one of the misconceptions is when you think about this being a glass fibre body and it being great, it resists rust, you kind of always think in your mind, oh, it must be also a really light car, and I don't think it actually was a particularly light car. Anyway, and as a two-seater with the back seat completely down, the GTE can take a big estate-sized 40 cubic feet of luggage throughout its extra wide rear door. All in all, the GTE is the only car that successfully combines the sports car and the estate, a unique achievement and a bigger all-round motoring experience, the new Scimitar GTE. I think you can certainly see why people might have lusted after these cars, although, like I said, I don't think it was a particularly cheap motor. Then we have a look at the hatch, although really it's only like the glass area, again, very much a Reliant thing. So I guess it was a bit awkward to lift things through that hatch, but nevertheless, with those seats folded back, you get a useful amount of space in there for what was a bit of a sporty car. So back page then, and thankfully we're back to a bit of colour, and actually we get a lovely image. I do like this image here. I think the rear is actually my favourite part of this particular model of Scimitar. We'll read the text first though, and then we'll ponder over this lovely image. So the specifications begin by telling us, and unfortunately it's a little bit of a shiny material, actually shiny on the back there, so the darker colour makes some reflection, so I apologise for that, but it tells us it's a V6 overhead valve, cubic capacity 2994cc, maximum bhp 135 at 5500 rpm. Carburetor is a twin carburetor, automatic choke fitted as standard. Fuel tank capacity 20 gallons. Transmission GTE overdrive 4-speed synchromesh with overdrive on third and top. Shows the ratios though on there, and it talks about the GT Auto, the automatic option, and the ratios there. Looks like a 3-speed auto. Steering is rack and pinion. The brakes are vacuum servo hydraulic. Front discs, rear drums, independent front and rear hydraulic system with failed system warning device. The suspension, front independent double wishbone coil spring and damper units and anti-roll bar. Rear coil spring and damper unit 2 axle, located by trailing arms and laterally by Watts linkage. It does then talk about the dimensions and even the maximum towing weights, but I don't think we'll go through all that, but maybe I'll just move the camera a little bit in there if you do actually particularly want to just pause the screen for a second and have a look at that. Anyway, we'll move on with the specs. So the next section is entitled Fascia. It says precision moulding incorporating hooded glare-free instruments, 140 miles per hour speedometer, which sounds impressive, but it didn't do 140 miles per hour, of course, with kilometre scale, trip mileage, 7,000 RPM electrical tachometer, warning light cluster, incorporated ignition, main beam, heated rear screen, or right and left hand trafficators. Now, it's always weird when they put trafficators in there, because you almost imagine sort of like the 50s cars and a little arm coming out the side, but it just means indicators, of course. But yeah, it's nice that it's got, I guess, 2 lights on there, one for the right and one for the left hand indicators on the light cluster, I guess. I guess that's what it's trying to say. Anyway, brake system failed, worn brake pads, low fuel and handbrake on, electric clock, battery condition gauge, oil pressure gauge, water temperature gauge, fuel gauge, column switch for horn, headlamp dip flasher direction indicators, windscreen, 2-speed wiper control including flick, wipe and wash, and then moving the camera down. Switches for all lighting, dual speed heater for fan, dual speed wipers and washer switches for rear window, hazard warning, fog, rear guard lamps and heated rear window. Instrument illumination, level control, face level fresh air ventilation through adjustable nozzles, combined ignition starter switch and steering anti-theft lock. It also goes on to tell us about the electrical equipment, so 12 volt battery, alternator and full range of normal equipment. And then we can have optional extras on here. Starts with the Radiomobile radio and stereo cartridge player with 4-speaker system, Philips RN642 stereo radio and stereo cassette player with 4-speaker systems, laminated front screen, cast alloy wheels. I wonder if they were the cast alloy wheels that we had a look at on the front page there. Leather upholstery, auxiliary lamps, pair of, thank you for the pair, tinted glass all round, electrically operated windows, power steering, electrically operated aerial, so you can spec it up to be a pretty nice car. But like I said, I don't think they were particularly cheap cars. I just can't remember the price, and unfortunately there isn't a price in this particular brochure, but I don't think really you thought it of a cheap vehicle. Even Reliant Robins weren't particularly cheap, I always found anyway. It tells us there the Reliant Motor Company Limited, Tamworth, Staffs, England. Telephone number there, registration number. It says this specification is applied to vehicles manufactured at data printing. Price and specifications are liable to alterations subsequently without notice. Brochures always come up with that sort of nonsense. They can change it any time, but I'm sure we all know that. And then it says printed in England, October 1975. But hold on a minute, before we end the show, we need to look at that lovely image. So I've zoomed into the back there. I presume this is the same car as what's on the front. Maybe we should open it up fully and see if the two halves join. But here it looks more of an orangey colour than a brown colour, doesn't it? And quite like the idea of a Scimitar in orange, I must admit. Much nicer than brown. So have a look at the rear end there. These particular lights, which I presume are fog lights, I'm presuming, look a little bit tacked on as an afterthought. I'm not sure about that. They look like they are moulded around the bumper, but I'm not too keen on that. But I like the rear lights overall. I think it's a good looking car from the rear. I like how the little rear wiper there, which one thing, it's nice that it's got a rear wiper at this time period, but also that it's in chrome, and it just kind of like falls off the end of the screen there, just so it then allows you to actually open this little hatch area. Like I say, it's not quite as practical as a full hatchback, but it's a nice idea overall. It's similar to a Reliant Robin, really, isn't it? And I always think about these cars is how were them sort of like hinges, how did they last up on that glass fibre body? If you know, please let me know. We can also see that it's got a heated rear window there. Seats do look much nicer when they're not in black and white pictures. It's a shame they weren't a nice colourful picture for the interior, but it does look a nice place to be, and it looks a good quality place to be. I wonder if they're the leather seats. It's hard to tell, but we've got this sort of like carpeting on the back there for obviously when the seats fold back, but it looks from that image at least like a real quality automobile, I think. Badging, now always nice to see the badging on the back of the car, isn't it? So Scimitar GTE, this particular one is the automatic. And then finally, if I just move the screen all the way down, we can see the twin exhausts and the text there, new Scimitar GTE high performance estate. I just want to open this brochure up the other way just to see if these two halves meet. No, of course they don't. I was forgetting it's pointing completely the wrong way, silly me. But sometimes on these brochures, when you open them up like that, it gives you a really nice long image of the car. But certainly this one, I presume it's the same colour, and it's obviously the light. This certainly looks more of an orange colour. This brown, I'm not too sure about. So there we go, the lovely Scimitar GTE. I really like these cars. it would be really nice to own one today. Certainly if you own one, please jot in the comments how much you absolutely adore this car. And if you've owned one in the past, how did you get on with it? Why did you sell it? What were the issues? Those are the sort of things that really interested me about real world owners who can obviously tell us and teach us so much more than a brochure can. But thank you so much for watching today. We'll end as we always do by saying, if you've not done already, please do consider subscribing. It's completely free, keeps you in touch with the channel, and it helps the channel grow, so therefore gives you better content. And like I say, it's completely free, so please do that, and you don't need to worry about that at all. You can also become a member now. That is a small fee to do that. That's more just to help the channel really, because we're only a very tiny channel producing a lot of content, and you know, very little earnings, basically nothing really from doing these videos. I do it for the love of it more than anything else. But anyway, I'll pop a couple of little boxes up for other episodes from Quarterlight, but thank you so much for watching Quarterlight today and the new Scimitar GTE. Please do take care. We'll see you very soon, and goodbye.